Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Sunset Ceremony. This event is the concluding activity for this year's national observance of the Philippine Veterans Week and the 79th anniversary of the Araw ng Kagitingan. The Sunset Ceremony is traditionally held at dusk during the last day of the week-long observance. This year's virtual ceremony will feature video message from the children of veterans, sharing their personal reflections on how their lives were touched by the veterans in their respective families. To start with, let us sing the national anthem of the Philippines, followed by the doxology led by the Pivo Chorale.
Sa simula, sa langit ng baga, may nilagang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang kisag ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagmimingin, kahit tuwing at araw ng kailan pa may madidinig. Lupa ng araw at aking pagsinta, wala langit sa piling mo. Ang ligaya
Now, let us hear the welcome remarks from the PVAW Administrator Undersecretary Ernesto G. Carolina.
Isang mapayapang hapon sa ating lahat. Today marks the last day of the observance of the 2021 Philippine Veterans Week and the 79th Araw ng Kagitingan. The one-week observance, which aims to pay tribute to the sacrifices and selfless service of our veterans, comes to a close in this sunset ceremony. Just as we start the Philippine Veterans Week at dawn, which heralds a new beginning and hope for the future, we culminate our observance at dusk, which symbolizes the completion of our journey and our veterans' quest to free our country from invaders. During the sunset ceremony, we traditionally gather at the tomb of the unknown soldier at the libingan ng mga bayani. together with our veterans. We meet each other like a long-lost family, like comrades finally seeing each other after a long journey to celebrate the triumphs of yesteryears that led to the freedom we enjoy today. We say a little prayer of thanks to our veterans and share personal stories of how our beloved veterans touch and influence our lives. We also light a candle of devotion for our veterans who have gone ahead to the great beyond, but whose legacy lives on forever. Though we were unable to physically undertake these commemorative activities this year due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we are gathered virtually today to continue our commitment of paying tribute to our veterans. We may be separated by distance now, but we are all united with the same purpose of perpetuating the stories and memorializing the heroism of our veterans. All this we do knowing that the victory won by our veterans came after years of struggle, that our country's liberation was claimed after much suffering, and that the freedom we relish today was won with the sweat and blood of our veterans. As we continue to face the COVID-19 pandemic, may we draw strength and inspiration from our veterans' brand of kagitingan. May we master the same amount of courage and determination they epitomized in defeating the enemy. And may we remain united in healing as one and prevailing over this health crisis. Let me close by welcoming all of you to this year's sunset ceremony. Mabuhay ang ating mga veterano, mabuhay ang ating bayang Pilipinas, mabuhay tayong lahat.
Thank you, Yusek Carolina, for acknowledging the heroic deeds and the patriotic acts of our veteran heroes during one of the nation's hardest times. Now we have the Commandant of the Philippine Coast Guard, Admiral George Villarreal or Sabia Jr., for his video greetings to all Filipino veterans.
The Philippine Coast Guard is one with the nation as we commemorate the heroism and bravery of our veterans and allies who fought for the national freedom during World War II. May this historic day remind us to love and serve the country as true PCG, patriotic, compassionate, and God-fearing. More so as we continue to fight for public health and economic recovery amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Let us continue to honor the fallen and survivors of World War II for their sacrifices, which allows us the freedom we are enjoying today. Let us learn from them, especially on how to overcome challenges and continue to live victoriously with the guidance of our Almighty Father. As we look back on the lessons of the past, live in the present, and plan for the future, I hope and pray that we will remain united in winning against the unseen enemy and steadfast in our resolve in upholding our Constitution in securing our sovereignty. We can achieve such by supporting the national government and by lifting prayers for the strength and protection, not only for our families and loved ones, but more importantly, for our medical professionals, fellow public servants, our modern-day heroes. May we all have a solemn and meaningful observance of the Day of Valor.
Thank you so much, Admiral Sabia Jr. of the PCG. Another testimonial is from the Commissioner Maria Rowena Amelia V. Guanzon of the Commission on Elections, the daughter of the late World War II veteran Private Sixto Guanzon.
Today we honor the men and women veterans of World War II, without whose sacrifices, bravery, and hardships we would not be enjoying our freedoms here as we stand today. I also pay tribute to my father, my dear departed father, Private Sixto Rojas Guanzon, who joined the guerrilla intelligence forces in Kabangkalan at the tender age of 16, and without whose sacrifices I would not be where I am today. He was captured by 6 Japanese soldiers while on a mission in Kabangkalan, but was able to escape. Became summa cum laude in Silliman University and cum laude in his School of Law. Conscious that he had a role in nation building after the war and to raise a family with integrity, courage, and above all, love of country. For you, Tatay, a snappy salute and thank you. Thank you for your service to the nation.
Up next is a testimonial of Mrs. Marinette Yan Aglipay, the daughter of the late General Manuel Yan, former AFP Chief of Staff, Ambassador, and a World War II veteran.
Senator Richard Gordon, Undersecretary Ernest Carpina, other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. My father is General Manuel Yan. The name carries expectations of service marked by courage, integrity, and loyalty to God, country, and family. Being his only daughter, I was close enough in observing how he served, and I should say, he exceeded what was expected of him. My father's relationship with his fellow men was what God is asking from all of us: to love God above all things and to love others as we love ourselves. I have never heard my father use profane language, nor have I seen him hurt his fellow men. He has a rosary always in his pocket, and I have seen him also attend the weekly Wednesday novena at the Baclaran Church of Our Lady of Perpetual Help. My dad's service to our country is not only marked by courage, integrity, and loyalty, but with excellence. He has served all the presidents in his prime age from 17 years to 85 years old, or a span of more or less 70 years. From graduating as #1 of class 1941 at the Philippine Military Academy, he became Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces of the Philippines. And then in his retirement, he was appointed as ambassador to the Philippines, Indonesia, ambassador of the Philippines to Indonesia, Thailand, and the United Kingdom. And he also became a member of the cabinet during the term of President Fidel Ramos. He signed for our government our first peace accord with our separatist brothers, Muslim brothers, the MILF. On the occasion of the Araw ng Kagitingan, I can still recall vividly my dad's stories about his participation in the Battle of Bataan, the death march from Bataan to Capas Tarlac, and his incarceration at the concentration camp at Camp O'Donnell. My favorite story was how he survived and helped others in the concentration camp by serving as waiter in the Japanese mess hall. After every meal, he segregated the untouched food from the leftovers and brought this to the prison cells to share it with his co-inmates, he repeatedly said, without the yolk of the eggs taken from the leftovers, more could have died at the concentration camp. The Japanese ate only the egg whites, and so the egg yolks were left untouched. I can also recall another story which my dad shared about the death march. While they were walking from Bataan to Kapas Tarlac, multitudes of prisoners fell by the wayside because of hunger, fatigue, and sickness. In fact, my father himself contracted malaria during this march. He recounted the hundreds of civilian Filipinos who lined the path of the death march to provide food and water for the prisoners at the risk of being punished by the Japanese guards. Instead, he was surprised that the Japanese soldiers allowed the Filipinos to give food and water to the prisoners. As a father, his love and care was felt from the quality time that he spent with us, his family, on several occasions when he was home to visit us from his field assignments. There was one instance when I had a problem with my math assignment and I asked him to help me. He taught me the steps on how to solve the math problem and the technique on how to approach and come up with a solution. He practically gave me his entire time with our family for that visit to give me the knowledge and confidence that I needed to solve the math problems. I think it was this experience that showed me how to solve any problem analytically. Looking back now, I think a great part of what I did in my life is a reflection of what my father has shown to me as a child and as a professional in terms of service to God, country, and family. That is, giving my very best without expecting anything in return, and just experiencing joy by seeing happiness in the faces of the people that I served. Thank you very much. And thank you so much to my father for all the lessons that I have learned during his lifetime.
That is Mrs. Marinette Yan Aglipay for her testimonial. Now we have the testimonial of Representative Raymond Democrito C. Mendoza of the Trade Union Congress of the Philippines, son of World War II veteran Lieutenant Democrito T. Mendoza.
May hapon kanyang tanan. Magandang hapon. A beautiful and safe afternoon to all of you. I join all of you in celebrating the life and service of our loved ones who have honorably and proudly defended our ideals we hold together as a nation, and for having defended our country, our sovereignty, and the freedom that we now able to enjoy. Daghang salamat. Thank you to their sacrifices. Growing up, I knew my father, Lieutenant Colonel Democrito Kakito Quito Mendoza, to be a very, very strong and admirable man. And he was able to instill in me and my 14 siblings the same love for the country that he had and the same work ethic that allowed him to serve the Filipino nation. That love has transcended to the Filipino veterans, the working class and their families. Hence, Kakito's leadership in the trade union movement here and abroad. His leadership and strong will are what allowed him to become a labor leader one of the founders of the Trade Union Congress of the Philippines, Labor Center, and the party list, and the associated labor unions, ALU, and all other labor associations, coalitions at the international level, notably the ASEAN Trade Union Council. His passion and dedication ignited his desire to improve the lives of the Filipino workers and their families. It was his vision and hope that all workers are able to live in dignity, which we continue to carry with us today, and what his children and his comrades in the labor movement continue to strive towards. My father would also tell us stories of his accomplishments as a veteran, and for example, when he led his group to fight with enemy soldiers in the mountains of Cebu, and they were able to capture their enemies, and this was achieved with the sacrifices of his comrades, with only 11 of them left in the company afterwards. Besides these, he was also among those World War II veterans who helped in the reopening of the Philippine Veterans Bank, and he was also instrumental in the growth of the Veterans Federation of the Philippines, as he was a regional vice president for Region 7 for more than 20 years. Indeed, Lieutenant Colonel Democrito Quito Mendoza also initiated in raising the seed money of the Veterans Federation of the Philippines by recommending that all lifetime members of the VFP authorize the deduction of membership dues as membership fees. Besides founding the TUCP party list, he was also one of the founders of the VFP party list, or the Veterans Freedom Party, and one of its regional vice officers. My father, admittedly, someone I look up to and someone whose influence guides the decisions and choices that I make today. I was just a typical son who looked up to him, admiring his accomplishment, not for himself, but for the country. And so I pursued law school, entered government service, and as destiny would call for it, a labor leader as well. You know, he was so proud when I became a labor representative of the House of Representatives. Labor representation in elective office or politics has always been his dream for the trade union movement. Day one since 2009 in Congress, he insisted that I should be a member of the Committee on Veterans Affairs. Yes, being a member in the 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, and now 18th, the longest serving since. And so today, being the chairperson of the House Committee on Overseas Workers Affairs and senior vice chairperson to the Committee on Labor and Employment, I always remember him in the work we do. He is not only the inspiration to us, but he instilled in us the importance and the urgency of championing both labor and veterans issues or sectors. And that there are real faces of veterans, workers, and their families in every statistics, every policy that we encounter. Being the son of Kakito and now the president of TUCP and also the national president of VFP SDI, sons and daughters and their descendants, it is both an honor and an immense challenge for me to carry on the torch and his legacy. The work upon our shoulders is heavy, yet we are guided by Kakito's work ethics, principles, and dedication. This I know, as long as there is one worker who is struggling for decent jobs and for a living wage and for occupational safety and health, we shall not tire. The labor movement will always put up a good fight, so the lives of workers and their families are truly transformed. And of course, that includes our veterans. Thank you for honoring our veterans and for holding this celebration for their sake. Daghang salamat, maraming salamat po. Mabuhay ang mga veterano.
Thank you so much, Congressman Mendoza. Here is a testimonial of Philippine Veterans Bank President and COO Renato A. Claraval. He is the son of World War II veterans Lieutenant Colonel Juan J. Claraval and Second Lieutenant Rizalina Claraval.
Isang magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. It's an honor to be with you today for the sunset ceremony of Philippine Veterans Week 2021. I thank the PVAW under the leadership of Administrator Ernesto Carolina for this invitation to share my thoughts with you this afternoon. As we all know, today formally marks the close of this year's week-long series of events centering around the anniversary of the fall of Bataan, now known as Araw ng Kagitingan. Like many of you, I'm a proud descendant of veterans. Ang aking ama ay si Lieutenant Colonel Johnny Claraval mula sa Corps of Engineers. Ang aking ina ay si Second Lieutenant Rizalina Alvarez Claraval. May I also mention that my uncle, Vicente Alvarez, a prolific writer, was beheaded by the Japanese. They were my inspiration, and they made a call to service. As a proud descendant and a member of the VFP Sons and Daughters Association, or SDAI, I'm grateful that our country officially commemorates the memory and legacy of our Filipino World War II veterans. They came from all walks of life, men and women, rich and poor, military and civilian. Many of them were simple folk, farmers, teachers, workers, fishermen. But when the motherland called, they served. And they had no hesitation simply because it was the right thing to do. That's who they were. The heroes of the Philippine Revolution were the role models. Today, it's their turn to be the shining example to us in today's generation. We just need to look at our Filipino World War II veterans for leadership. While many of them have gone, their stories and example have shown us the way. As I close, I hope this tradition of having a week to remember them will continue for generations to come. Let it be a continuous remembrance of the thousands of Filipino veterans from all over the country. A testament to ordinary men and women who led extraordinary lives when their country needed them most. To them, we owe our freedom today. Maraming salamat po. Mabuhay kayong lahat.
Thank you, President and COO Claraval. Next is the testimonial of the Department of Information and Communications Technology Secretary Gregorio B. Honasan II, son of World War II veteran Lieutenant Colonel Romeo G. Honasan.
I would like to thank the Technical Working Committee of the 2021 Philippine Veterans Weekend and Araw ng Kagitingan for inviting me to share my memories of my late father, the late Lieutenant Colonel Romeo G. Honasan, Philippine Army, and for the opportunity to celebrate this event alongside other veterans and families of veterans who have defended our country. It was an invitation impossible to refuse, especially for one who came from a military family like ours. My mother, Alice, was the quintessential, capable military wife, prepared for any and every crisis or eventuality. And my 5 siblings and I grew up in a home where a soldier's uniform was worn with pride, and love of country and sacrifice were indispensable parts of being Filipino. My father was born on February 5, 1922 in Bulan, Sorsogon, a fisherman's son who overcame frail health as a young boy to join the Philippine Military Academy class of 1943. PMA classes 42, 43, and 44 were graduated early after World War II broke out in 1941. However, so these young men could join the fight for the country. He was part of the Bataan Death March, where he would tell us he saw relatives and friends die unbelievably, painful deaths. He told me how World War II and the Death March had a profound numbing effect on basic human emotions, so much that he had to relearn to laugh and cry after the war. Vitamin deficiency because of hunger led to failing eyesight and weakness, which forced Allied Filipino soldiers to rely solely on sound to detect enemy intrusions or attacks. Cigarettes, often substituted for food, to quell the soldiers' hunger pangs. Eventually, my father would escape the death march and join the guerrilla forces in Bicol, his home province. His PMA classmates and fellow defenders would remain lifelong friends and comrades. My father was a professional soldier who served two presidents, Ramon Magsaysay and Carlos P. Garcia, to the best of his ability. He organized and professionalized what was then the Presidential Security Group, helping lay the foundations of what it is now. Yet, he was forced to retire prematurely after 23 years of dedicated service because the incoming president's wife unjustly accused him of serving the outgoing administration in a partisan manner, a scenario which has unfortunately become all too familiar even to this day. Even as a civilian, he was a well-loved and respected leader. When he passed away in 1983 because of a cerebral aneurysm, he was a state manager of the Taguluan Industrial Estate of the Philippine Veterans Investment Development Corporation, or FIVIDEC, Industrial Authority, located in Misamis Oriental. The outpouring of love and sympathy from both colleagues and workers during that most difficult time in our lives remains for me a true testament to his being an outstanding manager and a good man. My father finished paying the GSIS loan for our home in Marikina only a month before he died at age 61 and could thus be accused of unexplained poverty. Indeed, the military officers of his time who did their jobs honestly retired as middle-class professionals, and the luxuries and power enjoyed by today's top brass would remain alien concepts to my father and his contemporaries. I will never forget the advice he gave me when I graduated from the PMA in 1971. In a crunch, he said, only two things will keep your head above the water: professional competence and integrity. He remains one of the biggest influences in my life and a true role model. Today, as I remember my father and the ideals and values he upheld in his life as a soldier, a manager, and a family man, I am one with all the families and friends of veterans. I join you in honoring their achievements and thanking them for fighting valiantly for the freedom that we enjoy today. It is now our work to ensure that all their sacrifices will never be in vain. Thank you very much. Mabuhay po tayo, and God bless.
Thank you, Secretary Honasan. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest of honor and speaker for this virtual sunset ceremony, Senator Richard J. Gordon, the son of World War II veteran First Lieutenant James T. Gordon.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, on the sunset ceremony for Linggo ng Kagitingan. I'd like to greet you, Sec Ernesto Carolina, Bigo Administrator, and Weng Guanzon, a daughter of the veteran Sixto Guanzon, and of course the others who are going to make impressions today, including my friend Senator and now Secretary of DICT Honasan. And also I'd like to greet most especially the veterans and their relatives and their families who are andyan ngayon sa araw na ito. Napakahalagang araw na ito. Mga kababayan, kung magkamisan, we take for granted yung ating mga nakaraan. Kaya tayo ay tila walang paroroonan. Yan ang sinasabi ni Robert Frost na tayo ay naging hired men. In other words, tayo ay inuupahan ang ating mga kababayan. Pero ang ibig sabihin niyan, hindi yung direct upa. Ang sinasabi lang diyan ay na-condemn tayo na hindi tayo marunong dahil hindi natin pinapag-aralan ang nakaraan, yung mga sakripisyo ng mga naging bayani natin. And therefore, we have no future to look forward to with hope. In English, sabi nga niya, a country that cannot look back at the past with pride and cannot look at the future with hope. Hindi pa naman huli. At sa tingin ko, habang lumalaki ako kanya-kanya na lang diskarte para malaman natin kung ano talaga ang dapat natin malaman sa kagitingan ng ating bansa. Ibang bansa katulad ng Amerika, marami silang istorya. Bawat pamilya doon ay may veterano. Or may bawat pamilya doon ay kada taon ay merong tao na nagsilbi sa mga giyera ng Amerika. Ito ay nagsimula lalo na ng Civil War and even earlier sa Revolutionary War. Tayo mas maaga nagsimula. At kung titignan natin ang panimulaan natin, si Lapu-Lapu ay doon sa Battle of Mactan in April 27, if I'm not mistaken, 1521, siya ang sinugod at siya ang lumaban at kanyang tinalo ang Portuges na si Ferdinand Magellan or Magallanes na dala-dala yung mga sundalo at buke de guerra ng mga Kastila. Lupay-pay silang bumalik at diyan nagsimula yung tinatawag nating globalization ng ating mundo. Naikot ng mga Kastila at ang nakatulong sa kanila ay nakapunta sila sa Pilipinas. Gutom na, hirap na, pero nakakuha sila ng supplies at nakabalik sila sa Espanya. Diyan sa atin nagsimula therefore ang globalization. At kung titignan mo sila Lapu-Lapu, ano nangyari pagkatapos? Babalik ang mga Kastila para i-claim tayong kanilang naging colonial property. At ang pagtingin nila para hindi tayo maging masalimot, ginawa nilang mamamatay tao si Lapu-Lapu. At yan ang istorya ng ating bayan. We tend to bring down our heroes, we forget them, and therefore wala tayong kumpiyansa na humarap sa kinabukasan. Sundan po natin si Lapu-Lapu ng panahon ng revolusyon. After 300 rebellions, finally, sila Aguinaldo, sila Bonifacio, ang ating mga bayani na kung magkamisan tinuturing pa natin nag-aaway-away. Hanggang ngayon si Bonifacio hindi pa matanghal na bayani ng bansa. Ganun rin si Andres Bonifacio at saka si Lapu-Lapu, dalawa sila. Si Aguinaldo hindi pa rin tinatanghal na bayani. Bakit? Ang mga kwento natin ay kwento na nag-aaway-away sila na pinapatay pa ni Aguinaldo di umano. Andito tayo sa Cavite ngayon, si Bonifacio or si Antonio Luna. Pero wala naman tayong mga masasabing tunay na katibayan. At alam nyo nangyayari sa buong mundo yan na kung magkamisan, meron mga tao na humihiwalay o kumakaliwa sa revolusyon. Tulad sa Amerika, si Benedict Arnold. Pero hindi yan ang pag-uusapan natin ngayong araw na ito. Ang pag-uusapan natin ay yung kagitingan. At tulad halimbawa, ang aking lolo sa Cavite, na yung labanan sa Imus kung saan dyan tayo unang-unang nanalo sa labanan sa Kastila. Up to that time, before September 1 or 2 of 1896, talo po ng talo ang ating mga tao. Nakatulog si Bonifacio on the way to the Battle of Manila. Ang daming namatay. At lahat ng tangka natin kumuha ng armas dahil masyadong naudlot o nabigla yung ating revolusyon. Sumigaw na kagad tayo sa Balintawak na wala tayong handa. Katulad ngayon, wala rin tayong handa dyan sa nangyayari sa West Philippine Sea. Nabigla tayo tapos wala tayong panlaban. Hindi naman tayo nagigitla pero matagal na tayong hindi naghahanda para ipagtanggol ang bansa. So sa madaling sabi, na magitla tayo, ano nangyari? Dito sa ating bansa, nagtagumpay tayo pero samantalang sumama tayo sa Amerikano na tayo pinagbili rin sa Kastila for the sum of $20 million. Tapos doon, tayo ay lumaban sa World War II. Hindi natin pinaglaban ng Amerikano lamang, ang talagang pinaglaban ng mga bayani natin. Katulad ng mga sinasabi natin dito na sila Wenceslao Vinson, hindi nyo narinig yan, pinakabatang delegado sa Constitutional Convention of 1935. Matalino, scholar sa UP, debater, umisip ng isang vision along with the other leaders of the time na magkaroon tayong Mapilindo, Malaysia, Philippines, Indonesia. At magkaroon tayo ng isang lingwahe, bahasa, hindi Tagalog, hindi Cebuano, ngunit bahasa para tayo makiisa sa mga nagsasalita ng bahasa katulad ng Indonesia at Malaysia, at kung yung tatlong lang yun, malaki-laki tayong samahan o maging bansa, who knows, na talaga may panlaban tayo sa mga malalaking kapitbayan natin katulad ng China. Nakalimutan natin siya. Lumaban siya sa Hapon habang lumalaban pa ang mga kababayan natin sa Bataan para maibsan yung labanan sa Bataan. Pero nanalo nga siya, pero binalikan siya later on na matapos ang Bataan at hinanap siya ng mga Hapon, nakuha yung buong pamilya niya at silang lahat ay pinaslang, pinugutan ng ulo, hindi na nakita ang bangkay ni Wenceslao Vincent. Kaya ngayon, wala tayong tinatanghal na bayaning Wenceslao Vincent. Pinagsama si Lapu-Lapu na warrior at pinagsama si Rizal, matalino, scholar, sa isang taong ang pangalan ay Wenceslao Vincent ng Bicol. So makikita natin, going beyond that, nagpunta tayo sa Korean War. At doon nakita natin yung Camp Conrado Yap na nasa Sambales kayo. Panangalan kay Conrado Yap. Tinanghal ng tatlong bansa, America, Korea, and the Philippines, ang kanyang ginawang kagitingan, katapangan sa Korea. Kasama siya ng 9,000 troops na pinadala sa Korea at the dead of winter, malamig. Wala tayong malamigan na gamit, pampainit ng mga tao. Kasama niya si Bonnie Serrano na marami ring naani na mga medalya. Yung palang medalya ang hinahabol nito mga ito? No sir, lahat ng sinabi ko mga pangalan, handang lumaban yan. Kahit huwag mong bigyan ng medalya, siya lang ang common denominator yan. Sila ay matatapang na kayang ibigay ang buong bayan, ang buong tao, kabuhayan nila sa buong bansa para lang tayo ay maging independent, maging malaya at all times. Yan ang utang natin sa nakaraan. At nakalimutan natin yan. I use very harsh language na tila nakalimutan natin yan because tanongin mo kung ano mga ginawa niya mga yan na sinabi ko, bihirang-bihira ang makakalam. I had to put up the monument of Wenceslao Vincent doon sa UP, sa Vincent's Hall, para maalala lang si Wenceslao Vincent. Or for that matter, yung Lapu-Lapu Monument na naging kaibigan ko mga Koreano dahil dumadalaw ako doon sa bantayog ng Filipino soldiers who died in Korea. At tayo binigyan ng isang malaking bantayog dahil sa aking pakikitungo sa kanila, 28 million pinagawa nila yung sa Lapu-Lapu Monument. At napagkat dyan galing ka ako yung tapang nila Bonnie Serrano, nila Conrado Yap na nagbigay rin ng buhay kasama ng ating mga Pilipino dyan sa Korea. Pero, nung nilagay yan, ayaw pa ng iba. Bakit raw ilalagay sila Lapu-Lapu? Pang Rizal lamang raw yun, bagong bayan. Yan ang hirap sa atin. Ayaw natin buksan na nakaraan para may masasabi ang ating mga kabataan na talagang isa sa puso nila ang mga sakripisyo na nakaraan. So today, here we are today. Kahapon, April 9, ang celebration natin palagi the fall of Bataan. Alam nyo, I never believe in the fall of Bataan. It is the rising of the new heroes of this country na walang kailangan i-draft ng mga tao. Mas marami tayong lumaban sa Bataan. 78,000 ang lumaban doon. Of that, 65,000 are Filipinos and about 10,000 are Americans. And mas maraming namatay. 9,000 Filipinos ang namatay sa Bataan Death March, at 1,000 Americans died there. But we have forgotten them. We have turned the pages of history and forgotten them. Kaya makikita nyo, ang tawag doon sa PMA Fort del Pilar, isang bayaning pinakabata, general, at doon ginawa sa Baguio ang pangalan Fort del Pilar para matatandaan ng mga kadete yung kagitingan niya. Kagitingan niya pag na sila ay maging opisyal ng ating bayan. Pero how many of our soldiers, di naman lahat, pero ilan ang significant number have gone beyond the pale. Naging mga mapagsamantala at kulang ata sa respeto sa ating bansa. Hindi lang sila, ngunit yung mga nagtatrabaho sa gobyerno. Halos kulang na kulang sa sampalataya sa Panginoon at mas importante dahil sa Panginoon ay yung pagsilbihan ang inang bayan, lalo na yung mga mahihirap. Kaya nakikita nyo ngayon, ano ang challenges ng ating bansa? Tatlo po yan. Una, ang challenge ng COVID. Marami-rami na rin po namamatay sa atin. Mag-15,000 na. Marami-rami na rin na tinatamaan na sakit. Ngayon, record-breaking ang mga nakakasakit at namamatay ngayong mga araw na ito. Bakit ganon? Sapagkat ang ating health system has crumbled. At ang ating health system ay nasanay na yung ibang mga tao, hindi naman lahat dyan sa Department of Health, ay nawawala yung talagang unang malasakit, kusang loob malasakit at kapwa-tao. Kaya nahihirapan ang tao. At ang solusyon palagi ng ating gobyerno, including the Duterte administration and past administrations in the past. Hindi natin maalis yung ating ginagawa na imbes na magugaling makabayan ay pinapaasa natin ang tao sa mga tinatawag na sa Kastilang word, ayuda. Ayuda. Nung ako po ay nasa Subic, ang isa sa mga slogans ko ay self-help, self-reliance, and cooperation. Sarili kang magkusang loob, tumulong ka sa kapwa mo, at ikaw ay mag-volunteer. Para sa ganon, may cooperation tayo at maatim natin lahat ang ating mga pangarap. Makikita nyo, even doon sa Subic, ginawa ko mga bayani yung mga volunteer sapagkat nung umalis ang Amerikano sa Clark, nilaspag ang Clark. Pinangako ko na hindi mangyayari sa Subic yan. Kaya ang ginamit ko ay mga volunteer na talagang pinagtanggol yung mga bahay na hindi nanakaw, yung airfield ng QB na napakalakas. Nagawa namin maglagay ng mga radar, ILS doon, at nagawa namin mapalagan, under kaagad yung Subic on our first year at naging tanghal na pinakamaganda na tourism destination in the country. But alas, ano nangyari? Dumating ang FedEx, kayo umalis ang FedEx, wala na. Napabayaan na yung airport. Ganyan tayo. We cannot stay the course. We cannot look at the future with hope because we forget the people who work hard for us. Not me, but the many volunteers. Pero hindi ko po nakalimutan. May monumento sa Subic, yung Children of the Sun Returning. Land of the Morning, sabi sa English tong araw. Land of the Morning, Child of the Sun Returning. Sa national anthem natin, Lupang Hinirang, na wala na yung Children of the Sun Returning. Sa monumento, nilagyan ko ng piring, bulag. Tinatanggal ang puring pagkatapos ng putok ng pinatubo. Galing kami sa dilim at ngayon, meron kaming pangarap na hinaharap sa bagong bandila na pinakamalaki na nilagay natin ng araw upang magbigay buhay sa ating mga nalugmok na mga puso para ipaglaban ang ating kinabukasan. Ang challenge sa atin ngayon sa COVID ay huwag mo na magkasakit ang marami. Kaya ngayon ginagawa namin sa Red Cross, bukod sa pinakamaraming testing, ang isang private international organization na Philippine Red Cross, sila ang pinakamaraming testing. Kahapon, nagawa namin ang 1 million test. Isang laboratory lang po yun. Ang total test ng Red Cross ngayon umaabot na sa 2.5 million. Pero yung isang katangi-tanging port area laboratory out of the 13, pinakamalaki sa lahat ng laboratorio sa buong Pilipinas. Naglagay pa rin tayo ng tinatawag na saliva testing. Ang dami pang kuskus balungos. Binayagan natin ng mura. Pero ano ginagawa? Imbis na tulungan tayo na hiningan nila ng tulong, dahil di sila makapag-testing noong araw, ang RITM nagkakandara pa, hindi magawa ang trabaho. Anong ginawa? Nilapitan kami ng makita nila, nagmamadali tayong gumawa ng makabagong testing at tayo ngayon ang pinakamalaki sa buong bansa. Masaya ba ako? Hindi po. Hindi pa rin kaya sapagkat ang nangyayari habang may tao nagkakasakit mga hawayan. Ang kailangan tayo mismo, katulad ng mga bayani natin, may kusang loob na asikasuhin natin ang ating sarili para hindi tayo manghawa. Hindi natin mahawa ang mga mahal natin sa buhay. Kaya ano na naman ang ginawa natin? Hindi tumitigil po ang ating pag-uugali. Sabi ko, maglagay tayo. I hope makikita nyo sa mga larawan. Kinausap ko ang Ateneo, ang UP, ang Lasal, ang mga universidad at iba pa at mga mayor at ang dakilang si Mayor Abalos na dating mayor ng Mandaluyong, ngayon chairman ng MDA. Nagsama-sama po kami para magawa na meron tutulugan yung mga taong tinatawag natin na tinamaan na tinatawag na COVID pero hindi moderately commit from spreading the disease in their homes. Ang mga bahay po natin ay 7-6 sa pamilya, maaaring nandun ang lolo, lola, tatay, nanay, asawa at mga anak. Siguro lampas pa, umabot pa siguro 15 bawat bahay. Nakatira sa isang kwarto lamang. Doon kumakain doon lahat. Kaya sabi natin, ilalagay natin dito sa mga eskwela at dito natin sila alagaan at habang iniwan nila yung kanilang pamilya para hindi na magkasik at magkalat, nagbibigay po tayo ng pagkain. In fact, nasimulan na namin yan noong isa pang linggo sa mga tao at nung pang nakaraang mga araw last year, halos ilang daang milyon, lampas na ng 100 milyon na naitutulong po ng Red Cross. Volunteer organization. Ano ba ang common dito sa mga bayani ng lahi? Pinilig ba sila pulapong lumaban? Hindi po. Kusang loob siyang lumaban. At tinanghal niya sapagkat nandun sa kanyang puso ang pagmamahal sa kanyang bayan. Wala pang Pilipinas ng araw, pero pinagtanggol niya ang kanyang lugar, ang kanyang tribo. Ganun rin si Wenceslao Vincent, volunteer. Ganun rin si Tagle, volunteer. Ngayon kaya pag nagyera, meron kaya mga tao na sasabihin, ako, ang lakas ng China. Hindi natin kaya yan. Hindi mamamatay ang ating mga sundalo. Alam nyo, sa buong mundo, yung Finland lumaban sa Russia nung araw, Soviet Union. At kahit na natalo sila, may respeto ang buong mundo sa Finland because sila ay nanindigan. Yan ako papasok sa pangalawang hamon ngayon. Ang pangalawang hamon ay pinaparadaan tayo ng China. Kinuha na yung Scarborough Shoals. Nagtayo na sila ng maraming base militar. Hinintay lang nila umalis ang base militar ng Amerikano dito na dapat kasama sa Mutual Defense Pact. At ngayon, pinapabayaan natin. Magtayo sila. Sinasagasaan ng ating mga bangka. At binubuli tayo. Pero halos walang makapagsalita. From the president down, it's been timid ang reaction natin. Dapat pakita natin na kahit tayo magkaibigan, kung yung kaibigan na yan ay gagawing bully, dapat maninindigan tayo. Dapat kagad, mag-isip-isip tayo na dapat tawagin natin ang mga aliado natin. Ang Taiwan, atong mga Japan, ang New Zealand, Australia, America, at South Korea, at even Indonesia, na pwede siguro mag-usap-usap tayo para hindi tayo maging Europe na sinaklawan unti-unti ni Adolf Hitler, yung Rhineland, pagkatapos kinuha yung Austria, kinuha yung Poland, kinuha yung Czechoslovakia, lahat hanggang sinugod na ang kanyang aliado na na Russia, na parang kunyari nakipagkaibigan pa siya kay Stalin, pagkatapos sinugod din ang Russia, ang Soviet Union. Sa madaling sabi, walang magre-respeto sa taong kayuko sa mga manlulupig. Kaya ulutin ko yung kanta natin. At tayo ang perlas sa silanganan. Ang alab ng pagkagitingan ay nasa ating puso at sa dibdib mo ay buhay. Makikita nyo, tinuturo sa kanta, pero hanggang doon na lang, salita lang. Pero hindi natin ginagawa ang mga pulisiya, hindi natin ginagawa ang dapat nating isipin para lumakas ang ating armed forces. Minimit ko sinasabi, ilang beses ako nagsasabi dyan at pinaglalaban ko palagi yung budget ng militar na sinasabi ko nga, palakasin natin ang militar, hindi para supilin ang mga kababayan natin Pilipino, ngunit may panlaban tayo kung tayo ay aatakihin ng sino man. Isang bansang mahina, ang isang bansang walang kakayahan sa militar. Sa Japan, ang tawag nila, strengthen the military and enrich the country. Pag pinayaman natin ang bansa, meron tayong pambayad doon sa mga kailangan natin sa militar. At naging world power ang Japan in World War II. World War I pa lang, tinalo na nila ang Soviet Union, ang Russia in 1905 in the Battle of Tsushima. So, ang tingin ko, where there is no vision, people perish. Yan ang sinasabi sa Biblia. At yan nakikita natin, nahihirapan tayo. Pasok tayo sa pangatlong hamon ngayon panahon na ito, na kailangan rin ng kagitingan, kasipagan, at pagtsatsaga, kusang loob, malasakit at kapwa-tao. Di ba natatapos ito? Nakikita natin, ano sinasabi sa atin? Tayo are one of the laggards now. Hindi tayo makabangon dahil mali ang pagbabaksination natin. Mabagal, nahuli. Ayoko magsabi ng fix the blame. Napakarami ng tao dito sa Pilipinas walang ginawa, kundi mag-blame throwing. Kumbaga flamethrower, ito blame throwing. Hindi ako sumasang-ayon dyan. Ang kailangan natin, isang bansa tayo to fix the problem. Ang leader, ang paka niyan, hindi magabot lamang, ngunit palakasin ang loob ng tao at palabasin ang galing ng bawat mamamayan. Katulad ng mga ginawa ng mga mamamayan natin na lumaban, laban sa Kastila, from Lapu-Lapu all the way down to Vinsons, to Tagle and everybody, and to Bonnie Serrano and Conrado Yap. Namatay si Conrado Yap, nakakuha ng pinakamaraming medalya at namatay siya doon at ganoon rin si Bonnie Serrano. Nakabalik dito pero wala rin, nakalimutan na rin. So, ang hinahabol natin ngayon, makabangon tayo sa ekonomiya. Tingnan nyo ang turismo. Diyan tayo pinakamabilis dapat makabangon. Nagawa po natin yan doon sa Wow Philippines. Baksak ang turismo. Walang budget. Wala ko kung ginoon ng advertising agency. Pero Wow Philippines, World of Wonders. Pagka nakita nyo yung dagat, malakas ang loob natin, may kumpiyansa na warm over winter. Makita yung puti ng Boracay, yung Cebu, yung mga bayan natin na may beach. Dito, sa Cavite, magagamit natin lahat yan. Hindi na tawag natin na watch our water world, ang ating mga coral. Watch our whales, WOW yan, nandiyan lahat yan. Pampakisig ng loob at pagpakita ng tapang. Wars are fought not just on the battlefield. The wars start with the war against poverty. Ito ang gera natin ngayon. So sa mga darating na panahon po, gusto kong mag-i-share sa inyo, nung ako ay Secretary of Tourism, ginawa ko nga po yung Bagong Bayan and Rizal. Mahilig akong gumawa ng mga monumento na ginapakinabangan, yung Victories of the Revolution sa Cavite. Pinapa-repair po natin uli yan at saka yung dito sa Intramuros. Meron tayong bantayog ni Malvar sa Batangas, the last Filipino to surrender to the Americans. Andyan rin, nung ako ay senador na, ginawa ko pa rin yung 60th anniversary. Umikot tayo sa buong Pilipinas na kung kailan tinanghal natin yung liberation ng mga Pilipino at Amerikano ng ating bansa in World War II. At hindi tayo tumitigil sapagkat pinaglalaban rin natin yung ang mga pensyon laban na dapat binigay ng Amerika right after the war na kinalimutan tayo. Pupunta po ako sa Washington at kasama ko yung ambahador natin na ang pumanaw na si Willie Gaa na pinaglaban namin na mabigay sa atin hanggang kinausap ko mismo si Bush harap-harapan kasama ko si Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo, 5 kaming kabinete na sinabi ko nakalimutan nyo ang pangako nyo sa bansa. At today, habang nag-uusap tayo, may mga namamatay na mga veterano. So masasabi ko po sa inyo, hindi tumitigil ang alab ng ating puso. Bawat Pilipino, hindi tayo susuko sa mga paghamon ng panahon. Kaya gusto kong bagitin dito, inilagay ko doon sa Intramuros, doon sa Bagong Bayan and Rizal, pagkatapos sa matay ng Rizal. Doon binanggit ko sila Raja Suleiman na pinalayas ng Kastila nila Juan Salcedo at tumabas siya, tinawag niyang Bagong Bayan. New country, Bagong Bayan. Pero ang kailangan natin, hindi bagong bansa, kailangan natin yung bagong pag-uugali, yung bagong alab ng puso na tayo ay kikilos. At kahit na nag-iisa tayo, sasamahan natin ng dalawa, yung dalawa maging 4, maging 8, maging 16, maging 32, hanggang dumami lahat ang ating bansa na lahat tayo ay magbubuhat. Katulad ng bayanihan, binubuhat ang bahay ng ikapitbahay para ilipat doon sa kabilang ibayo na mas maganda. That is what our challenge is today. To work as one as a country. Kaya mabagitin ko sa inyo yung sinabi ko, pagpasensya nyo, sabi ko, in my sarili ko, extemporaneous remarks po ito at yun ay Canape. Rizal died in Bagubayan. Before him, Gomez, Burgos, and Zamora na pinatay ng mga Kastila. And before them, Suleiman. Bagong Bayan. Sa English, the new country. Rizal never saw it, but he meant for us to see it and to build it. Yan ang ginawa ng ating mga bayani from Lapu-Lapu all the way to Conrado Yap and sila Boni Serrano. And if it is to be, yung bagong babasa, it must be up to us to build it. But have we changed our attitudes about ourselves and our country? Mga sinasabi ko malimit, what this country needs is not just a change of men, but a change in men. Ginagawa tayong palaasa na mga namumuno sa atin, kaya nagiging palasisi tayo. At yan, tinutuloy ko, are we still mired in our envies and insecurity? Inggitan, sisihan, at napaka-insecure. Pag nakita natin may umaansa, tinatawag natin crab mentality. Nilalagari natin ang paa para hindi makalipad ang mga pangarap ng ibang mga mamamayan natin sa Pilipinas. Bagong Bayan ay hindi lugar. It is not a place. Nakatitig po yan dito sa ating puso at ating kaisipan. Our attitude. It is an attitude. It is us, lahat tayo. We must learn, we must define and draw a picture of what must be. We must be. Kayo ba tinuturuan niyo ang anak niyo? Alam ko tinuturo niyo sa kanila pero gumagawa kayo ng isang litrato sa utak ng inyong mga bata at sa inyo rin. Kung anong klaseng tao. Mabuti ba kayong tao? May ambisyon ba kayo? O kayo parang si Juan Tamad? Natatamad-tamad? O kayo, do-drawing nyo na kayo ay talagang hindi lang bawal ang tamad, bawal ang tanga na mag-aaral maigi para maggamit na maging hindi lang scholar ng bayan, ngunit maging scholar para sa bayan. Alam nyo, yung Intramuros, ginawa ng walls ng mga Kastila palagi. Pinipiringan, katulad ng ginawa ko sa Pinatubo doon sa monumento doon, piniringan ko yung mga tao paglabas ng Pinatubo, nakita nila, meron na silang bagong bayan na sasakupin yung Subic Bay at yan inayos namin. Tinanggal ang piring sa mata at sinalakay namin ang hamon ng panahon at nakabangon ang Subic Karakaraka. So, it is time to become horizon changers once again. Our world cannot just built in our borders. Tingnan nyo, ang China umaabot pa hanggang Argentina. Hanggang pinalubog yung ilang mga bangka nilang mga boats doon ng Argentinian Navy nakaraan. Ang Indonesia, hinihila yung mga kanilang nananakop na mga sasakyang pandagat at sinunog ng Indonesia. Yung mga nagpo-pushing sa kanila. Pero tayo, nakikiusap tayo. Nagre-remonstrate tayo. Tigilan nyo kami. Hindi tayo re-respetuhin kung hindi tayo kikilos. Hindi tayo aasenso kung hindi tayo magtatrabaho lahat at gagamitin natin yung dunong para makagawa tayo ng turismo, makagawa tayo ng mga industriya, na talagang nakafocus lang tayo na makapaghanap buhay. At hindi tayo magiging successful hanggang matalo natin ang COVID. Ngayong araw na ito, gusto ko i-quote sa inyo yung sinabi ng isang Chinese na palaging kino-quote sa buong mundo. Si Sun Tzu. Ano ang sinabi niya? Ang sabi niya ay, one need not destroy one's enemy. Yan ang ginagawa niya sa atin. Hindi na tayo na-atake. Pinaparadaan lang tayo ng mga kanilang allegedly fishing vessels, ng mga militia nila. At sabi niya, one needs only to destroy his willingness to engage. Sinira na ang ating kagustuhan, ang ating kakayahan, ang ating desisyon, magdesisyon. Katulad ng mga tao, halimbawa, si Vincent, isa pa, si Ramon Cabrera, na isang batang-bata, football player ng Ateneo noong araw, na pumunta sa Bataan, naging marcher sa Death March, nahuli sa Intramuros. Ang siya ay naglalaro ng football sa Ateneo. Ang coach niya ay si Arsenio Lacson, dating mayor ng Manila. At tuwing babanggayin siya ng malalaking player, nakangiti siya kahit naduguan siya. At nung habang nandun siya sa Fort Santiago, tinotorture siya, ang binabalik niya ay thumbs up at saka isang finger na gano'n. Ang sinasabi niya, buhay pa ako, lalaban pa ako. Hanggang sa bandang huli, hindi na siya mapaamin katulad ni Vincent, hindi umamin, hindi sumapi sa mga kalibapi. Itong taong ito ay kinuha, dinala doon sa North Cemetery, pinahukay, sabi niya, hindi ko hukayin ang sarili kong libingan. Kayo ang maghukay sa akin. At ako hindi susuko sa inyo. At binayoneta siya. At nakita ni Lacson habang duguan ang bibig ni Ramon Cabrera, nakatawa pa rin siya. At sabi nga, di sa librong binasa ko tungkol dyan, alam natin kung sino ang nanalo, hindi yung Hapon, ngunit yung bayani si Ramon Cabrera. So today, let us not destroy ourselves in petty politics, in petty tribalisms. Let us begin to rebuild the character of a nation. Let us stop being the hired men of having a country that cannot look back at the past with pride and cannot look forward to the future with hope. Let us begin our quest to become horizon chasers once again. To be completely, talagang no fear. Sabi nga nung author, describe niya yung mga bayani ng lahi na pinagpapahirapan ng Hapon. They died as they lived. No fear. Walang takot. Talagang buong loob na ibigay ang kanyang alam ng kanyang puso at mamatay ng dahil sa iyo. Nakalagay ho lahat yan sa national anthem natin. Sila pula po ang mamatay ng dahil sa iyo. Sila pula po ang sabi, sa manlulupig di ka pasisir, hanggang kay Rizal na ang mamatay ng dahil sa iyo. Yun ang ibig sabihin ng national anthem natin. Isa puso po natin, isa buhay po natin. Ako'y magpapaalam pa samantala. I'd like to congratulate everyone. And before I do that, let me just say, ito ang tawag natin dito ay sunset ceremonies. Yung sunset ceremony po ay ginagawa ng maraming mga kasundaluhan. Ibig sabihin yan, nung may gera, pag sunset at takip silim na, aalis sila, maglalagay lang sila ng gwardiya ron at pupunta sila sa bayan at tapos gigisingin sila the next morning. Yung land of the morning, gigisingin sila upang bumalik ulit sa kanilang tungkulin na ipagtanggol ang kanilang inang bayan at ipalabasin yung kanilang duty at malabas ang dignidad at determinasyon ng bawat citizen of our country. So today, I am not going to say this is a sunset alone. Our country is a sunrise country. Tayo dapat ang tingin natin, sisilang natin ang ating araw-araw. Kaya nga sinasabi natin, we are the children of the sun returning. Mabuhay po kayo. Maraming salamat po. At naway, pagtunganan tayo po ng Panginoon, isang maluwalhating bansa, isang masipag na bansa, isang matapang na bansa, at isang bansang kayang isasabi yung ating kakulungan sa sarili, yung kakulungan ng ating mga kapwa para maatim natin ang magandang kinabukasan. Finally, ang Pilipinas ay magiging, ang tinatawag ko pa nung araw ng ko'y nasusubik, mga bagong agila ng Asia. Mabuhay po ang Pilipino, mabuhay po lahat ng mga bayani, mabuhay po lahat ng ating mga sundalo at lahat ng kawani na naway magbago tayong lahat at maging talagang tunay na bayani ang bawat lahi. Hindi tayo kailangan mamatay, maging bayani habang buhay pa tayo. Goodbye for now. Thank you very much. Pabuhay po kayong lahat.
And that concludes our virtual sunset ceremony and the week-long celebration of the 2021 Philippine Veterans Week and the 79th anniversary of the Araw ng Kagitingan. This has been Felice Lois Lania. Mabuhay ang mga veterano, mabuhay ang mga bayaning Pilipino. Thank you so much and stay safe, everyone.